Yeah, sometimes just seeing one or two people show you what's possible, even if if you're not at their level yet, just showing you what's possible kind of lets you think, well, if that's possible for them, what's possible for me? What's possible for me?
Hello and welcome to Carving Fire, the Way of the Artist. This is Chris and Adrian, finally here for you for the first ever episode of this podcast that we've been talking about for quite a while now. We're happy to finally present this project to the public and very excited to see where it's going to take us. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Hello. Yeah, this is it's finally happening after months of talking about it and being too busy to even get it off the ground, but we're here. From the chats that we've had online on text, I'm excited to see where we go with this, with each episode, and sort of our individual perspectives on basically the same industry, but coming at it from different kind of artistic angles. I think it's going to be quite interesting to really get into.
Absolutely. I'm also looking forward very much to what we can explore here, what we come up with, and also to having guests at some point, which is definitely on the roadmap.
Yeah.
So for the people who don't know us, me and Adrian have been working in the extreme music sector as freelance artists, visual artists for around the past 10 years, which is also how we met. Just to give you a little bit of background, feel free to explore our work individually as well, of course. So what brought us here, what brought this idea to life? That was basically the thought that it's pretty hard for people nowadays to actually get an insight into what it means to be an artist. That's why we're here. We're trying to shine a light on the ups and downs and all the in-betweens of an artist's daily life.
Should we start then by going through the way that we met and we've worked together in the past and kind of what's got us to this point now? I think that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because we were like literally you as the band, me as the illustrator. You got in touch with me. I dread to think how long ago it was now. Maybe 5 or 6 years? Do you think?
Just as a side note, for the people who don't know, I also play in a band as a professional musician in a band called Schammasch from Switzerland. Yeah, I guess it was around the time that Triangle got released, which would have been 16.
Yeah. Were you doing much of the artwork back then, or were you purely Schammasch back then?
I think I started out doing custom stuff in 2016. I think the first thing I really did, which made me wonder if there's actually any real option for me to get back into the artistic like visual arts world. The first thought came up when I did like some layout for the reissue of the first Schammasch album, and because the budget was really low for the artwork, so we just had 𝔚𝔠𝔬𝔪 do the front art, and I took care of the rest of the layout. So that was the very first time I really thought like, yeah, maybe there is a chance for me to get back into graphic design and stuff, because that used to be a passion of mine, and I always thought I would end up building a career on that much before I even thought about becoming a musician. So that was 2015, I think, when I did that, and 2016 a friend of mine, which is now part of Schammasch as a guitarist, asked me to do, I think, a logo for some private thing he had going. And then he asked me for some more stuff. And then he got a friend to ask me for a logo as well for their band. And so that's like the typical kind of story, you know, how things get rolling in this kind of world, I guess.
Oh yeah, the organic word of mouth is absolute gold in terms of like just getting some momentum, especially in the early days, you know, because it's one thing having the work to kind of put out as a portfolio online, but if you can get a couple of clients under your belt and a couple of projects to kind of show off on any different areas that you can do, the word of mouth from bands, because it must be so. I've always appreciated that you've got the point of view as a band working with an artist and an artist yourself kind of working with bands. You must kind of recognize when things go well with someone you worked with. So naturally, you're going to pass that on to friends in bands, or if people ask of sort of what the what it was like kind of working with each of those individuals. We do the same. Like illustrators will pass on messages of like who to work with, who not to, who to kind of keep an eye on and things. I think it's really healthy. It's really good of giving someone a heads up. And then I get people asking what bands I like to work with, and thankfully I get to say for the most part it's really positive. But it's nice just to kind of get that momentum of word of mouth going around everyone, so you kind of, like I say, get a bit of a heads up.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point you're raising when it comes to, like, you know, having the perspective from both sides of the aisle, because usually it's just one-sided, this kind of view, like you're the client and or you're the executor, like the freelancer or whatever you're hired for. And having seen both sides really gave me a very different perspective over the years to be able to understand issues and stuff that would come up usually from a different perspective.
Yeah, because you have to, being on one side of it, you've got to kind of think like the other side, which sometimes can work and sometimes just doesn't. And then if you can naturally like meet in the middle, and that's when you kind of both go from. Because I've always appreciated how you presented Schammasch from a graphic design point of view. So I think when we first started working together on the first design, I don't think I knew that you took care of that. I just assumed you would do what most bands do, as in like delegate that to someone else and pay for someone.
Well, but I did, like, for the biggest part. Up until then, I really had outside artists do the stuff that I asked them to do, or more so even. Yeah,
but like you said about the graphic design things around that.
Yeah, well. I mean that is true. Right? And also, I was always a very strong part of the stuff that was being made for under the band, with like directions and stuff. Even though there were some parts of it that really I owe a lot to 𝕮𝖗𝔄, really, 𝐿𝐴 from Paris. He really, basically, he was the reason I really started to work on that layout back then, because he encouraged me to just do it myself if I don't have the money to pay him. And that was one of the first steps really to get back into this whole world. And also, apart from that, I owe him a lot of the creative decisions and ideas and visions for the first more or less 3 albums, 2.5 maybe. Like a lot of stuff he did for us back then, especially for Contradiction. He basically gave us a lot of the, let's call it like visual or aesthetical identity, really. And I owe him a lot for that, and I'm really grateful still. But
Yeah, he's one of the best, man. Like he knows when to hold back with details and when to go all in with details. He gets that perfect balance for me. Like his work is so
yeah, I
consistent.
mean his genius is very consistent. Like there's always there's no question about it. Like there is so much creativity in there, and that's been an inspiration for me ever since I really got back into visual art. And I think, yeah, again, I owe him a lot when it comes to that as well. But
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to take on from all the different people you work with over the
yeah,
years.
I mean, you as well. You've been
Realizing
a
that,
huge inspiration for me when it comes to many things, like being very consistent in your work style, and that is has always been inspirational to me. And I always have tried to kind of rebuild this kind of thing, this kind of focus to just do trying to focus on one specific style, but I always fail after a while. So I have huge respect for artists that can really persist with one style and just develop this very specific characteristics and like the visual identity that make them out. And for me, it's always been pure chaos, really. And I always try to kind of bring a little bit of sense and a little bit of direction into the chaos, really.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think it can take more time than others, I think, to find their style. Because in my early days, I'd flick from different styles and even techniques, and I was aware in the moment that I needed to do that to kind of, I almost, maybe a strange kind of example, but I almost saw it as you're cutting corners from a page and kind of you get into the center of a piece of paper, and that center is your style, your technique, and doing the work over the years is literally just cutting the corners off. And sometimes you cut more off uh, than other times, and you kind of get there a bit quicker. And I think for the people who do kind of um, I always felt like there's a balance of having your own style without creating the same thing every time.
That is
'Cause
a
it's
very
like,
tough balance to maintain, though, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it is. And I ended up learning that for me, it was what helped most is me making sure that my subconscious world building, as in where I pull my ideas from, where I pull my textures, my colors, everything from. As soon as I started to concentrate on that and nurture that, my work started to come from that same world. As in, like, again, the textures I use, the colors, the line style, the inversion, that all, I learned that's where I'm pulling from. And even though I might have tried those techniques years ago, I was my world wasn't as solid as it is now. Does that can you get where I'm coming from with that? Because
Of
I feel
course.
like every artist has their own kind of inner world.
Of course. I mean, mine is a fucking, an abyss of chaos sometimes, I feel. But yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming from. I was just actually wondering, how long have you been doing this for?
Um, so funnily enough, the Facebook memories thing that came up earlier, and it was a post from I think 10 or 11 years ago of just some random work I've done. One of the comments was asking if I ever sold work to bands, and I'd commented back saying, no, not yet, but maybe one day.
When was that?
About 10 or 11 years ago.
Oh, really? So it's not even that long. I mean, it is a long time, of course, but I would have thought because I don't remember when I first saw any of your work, but I remember it was on Instagram, And it must have been around like maybe a year or so before I actually contacted you for some work. Must have been around 15 or 16. And I thought, fucking hell, this guy is really good. And there is like so much character and so much of that, again, that visual identity in that work, even though the stuff that he uses, like the imagery and the style isn't really like, you know, it's obvious where it comes from. There's like a lot of the Victorian ornamentation in there and these kind of things and a lot of the old school occult kind of classic illustration. And I thought, though, I was very impressed with how much of a visual identity you were able to create with this rather. I'm not doing it justice if I call it simple, but you know what I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I do, because I appreciate you saying that, because I kind of borrow elements from different styles and then I try and arrange them in ways that I would want someone else to. So yeah, nothing I draw is particularly original. I draw snakes, skulls, and teeth mostly.
I try to.
They're as old as time, you know. But I like to think that I can kind of play around with how I use them.
I mean, that was basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It's always to say there's a lot of repetition in your work when it comes to elements that like imagery. There is always a skull. There a lot of the time there's like a few teeth or so. There's a wreath maybe, and some bones, some nails, some diamonds maybe. But I really like this. Like to me, it's quite hard to imagine how someone can be so original with so little variation.
Well, I spent some years really stressing on not using the same elements over again.
Oh, really?
And I was just for that reason, because I was like, well, I did this in the last piece, so I'm not allowed to use that again for a few pieces. And I was like, why? Like, it wasn't fun. Like, I'm having, basically what I boil it down to is, if I'm not having fun drawing, whether it's for me or for a brand or anything, then what's the actual point?
Mm-hmm.
So then I kind of allowed myself, I think this is kind of where I've ended up, like you say, about having my own kind of like signature stuff, as you know, every artist does, but kind of allowed myself to use a lot of similar tools, but just use them in various ways. And it's fun for me figuring out how I can use those same tools, but make it look hopefully slightly different. Because for anyone who's followed my work for a while, they'll probably see that with some personal pieces, I will post like 2 or 3 versions where I've cut and chopped things, and I'm literally just playing with it. And it's like, what would it look like with this here? What would it look like with 4 of these instead of 1? It might not work for everyone, but for me, that's me playing around with these things that I've drawn, and that's the core of what I do. So if that kind of, you know, helps me stay sane in the middle of a large album project or whatever, then I'm happy to do it.
I mean, that is actually also another thing that I guess I've never really thought about it too much when I look at your stuff, but I definitely notice it a lot when you post like 3-4 different versions of the same piece. And to me, that is always something I would never ever do, because I think there has to be a point to a work of art where it's supposed to be finished, and then it's supposed to be untouched, you know, like, but it doesn't usually, or maybe that's wrong to say, but I would think that sometimes it would probably bother me looking at a work of art from someone else and see like 4 different versions of it, and I would probably think like, why can't you just finish it and like just be done and decide for one thing? Because what is your statement here? Like, you don't want it to be like 5 different versions, because that's not finished to me. But with your stuff, it never really bothers me, I guess. So I fully understand that point. And so my personal work kind of, for me, sits in 2 categories. I basically have it's usually A3, a full A3 piece with a full border. Everything that's inside is all connected and kind of fit together. Those aren't the pieces that I chop up. So mine more like bolder work that look kind of more like symbols and sigils. Those are the things that I generally draw in like separates, so that I can multi-layer them. And because I fully understand like the whole start to finish piece of art, that's done, that's ticked off, that's underlined. I definitely like agree with you on that. But then I find that little pocket of playtime, like a kid with a toy box type thing, where I create my own little things to play with. But that's really great. I think like I think of it of like having a toolbox ready with a lot of different great little pieces that you can put together and rearrange and find new ways of using it and stuff. And I mean, in some way, I do that the very same thing with my 3D stuff, because you know, a lot of the time I would, of course, reuse a thing that I've modeled, like an asset or whatever, and put it into a new shape or give it a new texture or a new color or like rearrange it in any kind of different way, because there's tons of ways in 3D design where how to redo stuff or like reuse it in different ways. It's so easy and it can be so engaging because it's so playful. And
does it ever feel like you've got too many options?
Yeah, of course, all the time. Especially because I guess that's different for you, because you don't use like outside assets that someone else made, like pre-made stuff. Obviously, you always draw all your stuff on your own. As a 3D artist, it's basically impossible nowadays to not use third-party assets. I mean, of course, it's not impossible, but under certain time aspects, when you're working on a piece that is to be done for someone else, like a client, or if it's just a huge workload that requires, like, I don't know. I mean, the Schammasch videos I did last year took me, I think, 5 months in total for both of them. Like, and when I say 5 months in total, I don't mean 5 days a week. I mean 7 days a week. And
yeah, they're incredible, man. Like, anyone listening needs to go YouTube those and watch or listen while listening to us.
But what I want to say with that is, if you have a workload of, you have one job to do, and you know that it's going to take you like up to 2 or 3 months to finish it, then you can't be hung up on shit like, I'm going to have to model this fucking piece of bone all by myself now. Yeah. Because the very same result is going to, no one will be able to notice any difference if I would make it on my own, or if I would just get it from an assets page or whatever.
It's how you use it that's your touch.
Exactly, and it just has to fulfill this little, this little very little role in maybe a shot of 1 second or something. And where was I actually going with this again?
Just in terms of like how you use.
The
different elements,
reusing stuff. I mean, yeah, exactly. That is the thing. That exactly, we were talking about choices and be overwhelmed with choices, which is something I feel many times, especially when it comes to stuff like ornaments. I have a huge library of ornament alphas, which is basically like just a picture, like a JPEG of an alpha, of the shape of an alpha. And in 3D, you can use these. It's basically a displacement map, which means, or a height map, which is just the shape in black and white with different grades of contrast that would bring out the shape in the little how do I say that, the contours in the whole piece. If you have an ornament, then obviously there's contours and a lot of shades and stuff. So that's how you basically can make a 3D asset very easily out of just a picture. And I've bought like, I don't know, 5 different libraries with like over 100 alphas each library of just ornaments. Just pieces of ornaments, and I end up using the same all the time because I just can't be bothered to redo 20 others into 3D assets because I'm just too lazy. So I don't have time for that, so I just end up using the same over and over again, and just maybe transform it a little bit or so, but
if it works, it works.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter really, but when it comes to choice, I guess in 3D design, it's even more so. It can be a bit overwhelming, definitely.
I can imagine. Yeah. So I've always wondered because I see like with your work, and I see some other. I don't follow many. In fact, I don't think I follow. I think you and yourself and Bill Ellis, I think, are the only 2 3D.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're missing out on so many great artists.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But I always imagine that you can control a ball of light within 3D and it helps you get all your shadows. Is that true, or is that me making that up?
No, that is absolutely true. And it's also really easy.
That's cool. I'd love that. Like for my work, just to have a ball of light just to play around with. Because I figured out something the other day. I did a podcast with Lee from Heavy Art Talk. He was kind enough to have me on. And
I was actually going to listen to it, but then other stuff came into the way. But yeah, I saw it.
I realized that I draw. So I add like slight shadows to my work, like with thicker lines, and it's all coming from the top down. And it was only like mid-podcast, I was like, hang on, that's been consistent in like for 10 years, and I've never really picked up on it. I just automatically do the top down. It's a little cliche. It's kind of like the higher light type thing. But
so you just that I understood correctly, like you always, the light shade always comes from the top.
Yeah, so I add all my thicker shaded lines at the bottom of everything. So it's coming down from the top, which, to be honest, once my work's inverted, no one will see. But all the original stuff, the black on white stuff, that's when you'd see it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just one of them. I've never really considered to do it any other way. But again, if something works, just keep it.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, never change a winning system or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I mean, it's so. I love 3D design. Really, it's such a great thing, and it's been such a revelation to me ever since I started it. Because before that, I was obviously mainly just you could say a graphic designer. I did here and there. I did stuff with digital drawing as well. I used to draw quite a lot as a kid, actually, but. Yeah, it never felt like I was fully in control of the whole thing, or I could like express myself in the desired ways, or there was always a huge limits to what you could be doing with graphic design. I mean, obviously there's tons of insanely good graphic designers out there, but for me it was always, I didn't have the skills to really be able to express myself as I wanted to. And when I started working with 3D, like this huge horizon just opened up before me, and with all these possibilities. And the more I got into it, the more I learned how to use it, the wider that horizon really got. And I'm so grateful I started it, because
Yeah, that's cool. Is that you felt like you needed that third dimension, and then technology kind of offered you it, and you found it. That's pretty cool.
to be honest, I have no idea why, but it was just a hunch. One day, like I think 2019, I thought like, there is this free 3D program. I could just download it and see if it does something for me, just out of the blue with no reason whatsoever. And
so were you aware of other 3D artists before you saw that program?
just basically just 𝕮𝖗𝔗𝔗 from France,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is still for me one of the top artists in the whole, let's call it, extreme music world.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Yeah.
Not just on a visual level, but also on a visual level. He's been also like a gigantic inspiration for me, in terms of what you can do and how you can use stuff, and his range is just insane. And I saw some of his very early 3D works, and I think it was just like still images, like album covers or something. And I thought, fucking hell, how the hell did he do this? And I knew it was 3D, and I'm a passionate gamer, and obviously I know this kind of 3D graphics world quite well since I was a kid, and also saw how it developed into something massively better than it was back 20 years ago or so. But I never really got into contact with 3D art in general, apart from gaming and stuff. And he was really like one of the first I saw the work of, and I thought like, fuck this. If you're able to do something like this on a 3D program, then like the possibilities are endless, and you can build your own fucking worlds and just go crazy with it, and there is really no limits to it. And that thought really fascinated me in some way that all the other kind of aesthetical or visual art techniques or genres never really did. And that was kind of, I guess, the beginning. And then I saw Bill Ellis' stuff on Instagram one day, and it just fucking blew my mind. Like nowadays it all makes a lot of sense what he does, and I can I have a lot of understanding and insight on the techniques he uses now, and it's all very graspable for me. Like I can understand how he does stuff now, but back then it was just really like very overwhelming, and that to me was like probably the bigger inspiration and motivation to really get this shit going and really learn it and really be able to utilize it as a tool for expression. And that's been the starting point for me when it comes to 3D art. And as I said before, I couldn't be more grateful having started it, because it's been a life-changing experience, really.
Yeah, sometimes just seeing one or two people show you what's possible, even if you're not at their level yet, just showing you what's possible kind of lets you think, well, if that's possible for them, what's possible for me?
Exactly. So tell me, who is that person for you? Like, are there very specific artists that would have done the same for you?
Yeah, there's a few, like back in the day, like just to show me what was possible with one or two pens, like the early Richie Beckett stuff, John Dyer Baisley, and then obviously all the old classics. Just like you say, the more you learn, the more you know what's gone into their work. So it kind of offers you more of a perspective on what is possible and where you can take it yourself.
So when did you decide to really properly go for the whole thing? Like even make a career out of it, or even just like, pursue it in a very proper way?
Yeah, well, so before I did my first commission, I was uploading work quite regularly, just to a Facebook page. And I had an email, I'm trying to think of which band it was, an email asking, I'm pretty sure it was to use something I'd already drawn. And back then I had no like plans to do it as a living. I just wanted to draw and upload it, and that was kind of where I was at. So I had no idea how much to charge. I, I didn't know what type of file to send, all the basics, basically. I just had no idea.
Oh, the whole file story.
Oh, yeah.
That raises so many memories.
Yeah. All the PTSD from all the memories. Yeah.
I imagine.
Oh, yeah, I went through all them.
When you have to learn about video clips and shit.
Yeah. Or like you send it and a couple of days later they send back saying, oh, so-and-so says this isn't right. You know,
Yeah.
oh, really sorry. I'll just Google how I can fix that.
And then you feel like the most incompetent piece of shit.
Oh, yeah. And the guilt for charging them. It's
Yeah.
it's a spiral that you can't let yourself get in. But I feel like that's all like really common early stages, which like we're doing now, you look back and you laugh at.
I don't know. I still feel sometimes
It's scary.
I feel guilty about charging people.
Oh, no, you should be way beyond that now.
Maybe I guess I have self-consciousness issues or something, but
Oh, the imposter syndrome is awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that shows its head at least once every 2 weeks for me, if I'm lucky. Yeah, so I did sort of one or two of those. Never really thought anything of it. Basically charged very, very little. Which, to be fair, my work wasn't great back then. So I feel like it's probably about right. I didn't try and overcharge, but I certainly didn't do anything for free. I'm glad I was aware of that. So yeah, I did a few of those. And then I think from the lessons that I learned from those, like we've just been on about, of like how to deliver the final artwork, what's required, like even learning like how bands are going to use your work so you can kind of preempt it and get ahead of that. That's there's a lot of things you just never even think you're going to need to know until you're in the thick
oh
of it.
yeah.
And even still now, like there's still things like that I learn. And
I mean, there's something new to learn every day with all the social media changes and Instagram suddenly changing to reels and all this kind of shit development that pushes artists or even like forces artists really into adapting all the time, constantly to all these fucking little shitty tech moods.
oh yeah, but don't forget, back when I was starting, none of this was a thing.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
just
like
gotten
super
much
simple.
worse.
You upload a photo or a video, and the people following you generally saw it and
Yeah,
interacted. It was so basic.
it's been insane, really. Like you could actually build up a followership in very short time, I guess. I mean, I kind of missed that time window back then because I wasn't doing it yet. But yeah, it's been so much easier, everything, like so much more simple.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of grateful that I got to see a lot of the illustrators uploading their work, and that's what inspired me to upload mine in the first place. Just because I wanted to. I always see it as like adding to the pot of creatives, just kind of doing the thing, working on their craft and just sharing it. Like I never genuinely never thought anything past that. It was I just wanted to be a part of that. I mean, what would it be? That kind of culture type thing.
Yeah.
And then yeah, then I think I got more confident in terms of accepting commissions. I was more open to them because those first few that I did, I knew I wanted to do them, but because they were brand new, I was somewhat scared, which again is probably quite normal. But once I got past that and got a little bit of confidence, and I could start to feel my work kind of take shape a little bit more as well, and I was starting to find what worked for me. Uh, I think I must have done those kind of on and off projects for maybe a year or two, and then something clicked one day, and I was like, okay, this if I'm going to do it, I need to. And basically, I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I go all in.
Mhm.
Um, there was no room for like half-assing it.
Yeah, same here.
Um, and from then to now, it's like I say, 10, 11 years later. And it's just been kind of steadily busy. Like
Mhm.
I've been grateful for that. And in between commissions, I've been booking in time for my own personal work because that's quite an important part of the whole thing. Like I'm not sure how people do commissions full time, like unless they're so they're just so dialed in that they can do 100% of their own work that people buy, which to me is like the very, very top.
Yeah, I know
That's
what you mean.
I feel like that's what everyone is striving for,
Yeah.
so that there's no compromise in your work, but you still get to make a living.
And you also don't have to fulfill pre-made wishes, you know?
Yeah, you don't have to make any logos bigger.
What is about this? What is it about this fucking make the logo bigger? Like I've been reading and hearing that in the past weeks like 10 times or so.
Oh,
It's been popping up everywhere on social media recently.
It's the classic feedback that no one wants to hear. I have nightmares about it.
But it's also the easiest change to do. Like it's better. It's better than can you redo the whole thing in a bit of a different vibe?
I know, yeah. Or you finish it and they go, actually, we went with the first draft. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's the classic, really.
Yeah, I think it's more of a symbol than the actual act of making a logo.
Of course. It's just funny that I've heard this thing so many times now.
Yeah, it's the classic. I think it goes back to like the 80s album covers when you've done the full painting and then you just insert the logo. But I genuinely don't mind feedback as long as it's coming from a place of
understanding
respect and understanding,
respect,
mutual
that's
kind of
the two big words, really.
Yeah, because I've worked with a few clients. In fact, I've had one recently that was asking for changes, and they were like, I hope that's not too much, and kind of really worried about over asking or anything like that. And in fact, another one recently, I sent off a sketch and I said, actually, now I'm seeing it. What do you think about this and this? So I hadn't drawn it. I've just put it in the email. And they were like, oh, that's amazing. I've thought of that as well, but I didn't want to suggest it because I've already asked for another change.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, fair enough. Like, you kind of put that reassurance in of like, honestly, any idea I will consider, but be prepared for some to not work and me to kind of, choose not to do.
I thought you were going to say like, be prepared for some rainstorm of hatred or something.
No, I'm a pretty fussy guy. Like, no. So that was nice, kind of getting the other end of it rather than like, I nearly said a list of changes, but I've learned that is the best thing rather than give me one change for me to work on and give me another one. I'd be like a few days.
Throwing the boats.
Yeah. Make me a nice list and then I'll come back to you in 3 days with all of these done.
You know, I've been noticing a lot of a big change since I started. I think around, I don't know, early last year or so. No, it was actually 2 years ago. I started when I would start a job, request from a band or a client that I've never worked with before. I would just start with with a very basic but very clear worded list of let's say demands. Maybe it's probably the wrong words, or just like rules, rules, how I work, and what I do and what I don't, and what's okay and what's not. And that really changed a lot for me. Like it changed a lot about how the communication was going from the very beginning, and about expectations and all that kind of stuff. And it made my life quite a bit easier when it comes to client work, because maybe I didn't do a very good job at communicating my needs in advance in the past before that, because a lot of the times client jobs for me turn out to be very difficult and very frustrating and very, frustrating for both sides probably, which is the least I want really. And being able to communicate those clear rules and needs and possibilities from the very beginning, kind of brought a different perspective to the clients as well, I guess. And it just really made things a lot easier, and I'm very grateful for that, because I've been enjoying the client work since then quite a bit more. So that's a huge progress.
Yeah, definitely. The more both sides can kind of lay their cards out from the start, the better generally. I always kind of take the thinking of like anything that I dislike that a client does, there's probably something I can put in place so that I either make sure I don't do that, or if I do that, to kind of fix it. Because it's the whole kind of the things that annoy you in other people are usually the thing inside that's kind of needs addressing. I kind of try and put that into client work of like, so again, if I dislike that they give me one edit, and then when that edit's been made, they find another one and repeat that.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, that is super frustrating.
Yeah, which to be fair, not a lot of clients really see it like that. That's fair enough, but I think it's up to us to address it for the benefit of both sides. So then anything that I can, so my version of fixing that would be literally to lay it out to them and be like, even if you've got one or two edits in mind, have a day or so.
Yeah, that is also extremely important, I think, because it can change things big time.
But if you think of how many times bands have seen like a sketch or something or an idea for the first time, that very first view is probably the best it's ever going to look in their eyes.
Exactly.
Like if you allow some time for them to kind of digest it a little bit and kind of look at the details rather than the initial look of it, chances are they'll go, could we maybe look at this, or what do you think about this? So then it's kind of rushing into something and then something coming up when it's almost too late.
I think I will have to adapt this practice into my jobs as well, because now I think about it, I never really communicate that. I think when a client has like stuff they want to have changed, I usually just, maybe give myself a little bit of time to think about it and then answer, but I never really told the client to, take a step back and maybe let it sink for a bit. Maybe I did, but I can't really remember. But yeah, it's definitely good advice, and I know it from my perspective as well. I know it can make a big difference to see stuff with fresh eyes and to sometimes just take a step back. And also when it comes to music as well, that's been a huge factor really, when I would let like a piece of song or some like basic construct lie there for like a couple of months even or so, and having no idea what's actually there, and then taking it on again with fresh ears, completely unbiased, that can change the whole thing like rapidly and substantially, really.
So yeah, 100%. So what happens with me is it's usually in my sketches when I give myself time to kind of sit on it and see if there are any edits, I'll find that certain pieces of the work stick in my head. And it's usually those are the bits that I know I want to keep. So then when I come back and take a look at it, I was explaining to someone a while ago, and it's the first time I'd ever kind of said it out loud, really, but I see my sketches as being like almost 3D in terms of the things I want to keep sat higher than the things that need changing. They're lower and they stand out more. And it's a really weird thing for my brain to do. But I imagine it's the same with music. Like let's say you've written a song and you give yourself time to kind of sit on it and digest it, certain parts of that song must stay in your head and you go, yeah, that either works well or the transition works well or something. But then there'll be another part where whenever you remember it, you feel like, okay, that might need some work or, so I wonder if it's a similar kind of way of thinking for music as well.
I mean, I'm sure it is in some way, but to be honest, creating music for me is a whole different beast, and it's always, I don't know, it's a very strange thing, very strange relationship I have to writing music, because it's always a process that when it starts, it's getting very intense very quickly. And I kind of lose myself in that kind of a brain fog, really. And it all happens a lot from an instinctive level. And once I'm done with it, I could say probably 90% of the remembrance, like the memories of how I did things, when I did it, like in what kind of mood I was, or all these kind of things, they just vanish from my memory. And
yeah,
I couldn't tell you, like 90% of any Schammasch album, I couldn't tell you how the fuck I wrote it, because it's just really a brain fog. There's not much there. There are certain key memories, like certain moments or certain, maybe certain highlights or something. But usually it's just this very strange process that happens when it happens, but it happens completely outside of the rest of my life, really. Like it would be almost like kind of a detached thing that happens in kind of an automated mode that I drop in.
I feel like that's how it should be, though, especially for the music that you're writing.
But it makes it extremely hard to get back into it every time, because every time I start again and pick it up again, it feels like I lost all skill and all the craftsmanship it requires to become good, and I have to start from scratch again every single time, and it always feels like I have no clue what to do. I have no clue how to do it or where to start and how to make it good. And I think for quite a few musicians, it might be the same. I once heard Hans Zimmer pretty much say the same thing about writing for films. He said it's always, I don't know how he said it word for word, but he said something to the sound of like, I have no clue how to do your movie, and it's always a blank piece of paper, and I start from zero. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Which resonated a lot with me, because I know that feeling exactly very well.
Well, it's almost like you've shed the old ideas, you've used the old ideas, so you're coming in blank to find and make the new ideas.
Maybe, and I guess that is also obviously a good thing, but it can make it a bit hard. I think with design, it's never that hard. I never really lose, my kind of way of working.
Yeah. There's a new, just speaking of Hans Zimmer, there's a new interview online with him that I'll send you a link for if you've not already seen it.
No,
Is the
I don't
guy,
think so.
is it Rick Beto, I believe, he's a YouTuber.
Okay.
And I started it early, and that's a really good interview so far. Because he gets to go into it. Because at the start of the interview, he's like, some of the ones that I've been doing have been so boring, and it's like, at least you get into like the core of writing music and all this. So yeah, I'll send you a link when we're done.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I mean, he's always a very interesting character anyway, and an absolutely insanely talented artist as well.
I think he's the reason he's so good at what he does. I feel like he's tuned into his process enough to know what he needs, like on a larger scale of what we've just been talking about.
He knows. He probably knows extremely well how to use the tools that he has and how to deploy them. Really.
Well, not just the tools, the people around him that are the experts in their own.
That's what I mean by tools, really. I mean,
right? Yeah.
It sounds degrading, but they are tools in that kind of environment. I think.
Like, yeah, he's literally the conductor tools in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he kind of has the ideas, puts it to them, and gets the most out of them.
But also, he's in a position where he doesn't have to worry about anything else, which is a huge luxury, I think. And it's a position that must give a lot of freedom. Maybe I'm wrong because I don't really know it that well, that position.
No,
but
I think the same. I think that must be a thing where you have enough brain space.
Right. That must be so freeing.
Yeah, just...
don't have to worry about how to pay the bills at the end of the month, or like running after 10 projects at the same time and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's just, you can be solely focused on that project, and then like have enough resources at your fingertips to do anything you could imagine.
Unlimited resources, probably.
Yeah, like you put that same brain in a different situation where those things aren't taken care of. I'm sure it looks and sounds a little bit different.
But it would still be great. No doubt about it.
It would definitely still be great. Yeah. But the scope of... I mean, you watch even one or two videos on the process for the Dune soundtrack. The detail that they go into in terms of like making their own instruments just for specific sounds.
Yeah. I saw a couple of clips about like how they did the sounds for the...
It's just
incredible. The chopper things.
Yeah.
That must also be so much fun, imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Being paid for that. Paid a lot for that.
And then for the movie to actually be good as well.
Fuck. I love the Dune movies. They're incredible. Just absolutely mind-blowing, and from so many different perspectives, even just from a technical perspective and like stylistical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Every shot's just a piece of art.
Yeah, really.
And literally.
And there is so much shit coming from Hollywood these days. I guess it's always been the case, but nowadays it's probably at its worst. But I keep saying that the Dune movies are one of the best examples, I think, for what Hollywood can do if it's only taking, if you only take its good parts and ditch all the shit. Then you have something like that, which is a masterpiece.
Yeah, if it's about the art, not the money.
Yeah, and just the quality with no compromise, with no compromise on the many things that they nowadays would compromise usually to save money or to save time and But
the attention to detail on those movies is just insane, and obviously money allows that. I'm not saying there's not a lot of money involved. There has to be,
of course.
But the art comes first, and the money allows the art to be as wide as it is.
Which it's kind of a formula that's usually the other way around, isn't it? Like with all the Marvel and Transformer movies and all this kind of crap, where you just have like a huge budget and all the art is just really just like basically an alibi to make a movie
Yes.
To have a shit ton, like a huge pile of money to just throw at technology and see what happens. And if it's any good, then you're very lucky, I guess. But usually it isn't.
No, it's all cut and paste. For a lot of them. There must be the same studios just churning out explosion after explosion.
Funny story that reminds me of something I saw recently. There was like the Oscar thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really care about that thing, but I saw on Instagram, that a guy won the category of like CGI movies, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about it was one guy. I think he had a small team of like maybe 5 to 10 people or something, or maybe I'm wrong, and it was just really one guy doing it all. But he used Blender, which is the free 3D software anyone can use, free of charge completely, which I also use a lot, and I also started 3D design with. And he made a movie with that thing, a CG movie. He won the fucking Oscar for it. And the 3 other nominations were like, I don't know if it was 3, but at least one other nomination was like a major kind of big Hollywood studio thing with a couple of millions as a budget, which was just so funny. And I love that fact so much, that just one guy can take a free program nowadays and make a movie that wins an Oscar. And beat all these fucking overpaid assholes, like the fucking CEOs that just put money wherever they think is going to make them more money, and they just fucking fail miserably. It's such a joy to watch, really.
Yeah. So how does the voting system work for them? Who votes for that?
For the Oscars?
For the Oscars,
I have no clue, to be honest. No idea. An interesting question, but I never really got into that.
I mean, it's great that he won regardless, but I just wonder how the system got in there. But
yeah, good question.
Yeah, I think the whole Hollywood thing is way overdue a collapse.
Yeah. And I think it's very close to that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think we Europeans often take pride in making fun of all the American industries and all that kind of pop culture and everything that comes from there that is flashy and surface level entertainment and all this kind of shit, which is fair enough, and I do that a lot myself. But I think a lot of people tend to forget that they also did a lot of good for art in general, I think, and for entertainment as well.
Yeah,
because we all consume that kind of stuff. We all have our Netflix subscriptions, and we all loved stuff like Breaking Bad or I don't know, Game of Thrones. Maybe I haven't seen it myself, but there's like certain no-brainers that are just insanely great pieces of art coming from there, and I think sometimes we tend to forget that a little bit when talking about stuff like Hollywood and shit.
Yeah, definitely. But just before we go any further, how have you managed to not see Game of Thrones? Have you ever seen any episode like on its own or anything?
No.
Have you?
So I kind of avoided it on purpose when it came up and was such a huge success and everybody started talking about it, and I just got kind of sick of it. And how it is, like if everyone is hyping around shit that something you don't know or haven't seen or haven't heard or so, and at some point it just goes on your nerves, and that was kind of the point back then. And the years passed, I never saw it, and nowadays I find myself considering doing an HBO subscription just to be able to watch it, really. Because at some point I really need to watch it, and no doubt. And there's always a lot of great stuff coming from HBO, really. Maybe I'm just gonna download it.
It's definitely worth a go. I'm not going to be one of them that sit here and go, you need to see it. You will absolutely love it. I'm not going to do that.
No doubt, really. I never really had doubts about that, but yeah, at some point it got kind of I wanted to make a point in not seeing it, which is pretty stupid.
That. That's fair enough. I got caught up and I watched the first episode and I was all in. I'm like, okay, you've got me.
Really, I've never seen anything bad coming from HBO. Also, like Sopranos, for example, is also just
great
example.
I've not seen Sopranos.
Ah, well, there you go.
But one of my best friends knows it word for word.
Yeah, so it's great. And also Chernobyl was really impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting drifting a bit away from
yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit late in the evening for me. I'm usually in bed, so this is
really?
where
wow.
Yeah, I'm a morning person generally. Yeah.
How old are you, by the way? I don't think I
turned 38 in February.
Oh, then we're almost the same age. I'm just a year younger then. But
I used to be a night owl. I used to draw until like 1, 2 in the morning. And I found that used to be my like sort of 10 o'clock onwards used to be like a really creative couple of hours for me.
Yeah, I know that feeling, but as we both know, it's not doing any good for a healthy sleep and a healthy routine, really. I had to learn that as well.
Other boring everyday life stuff to do as well. Like back in the day when I was younger, you just stay up and then sleep in, and then that was all you had to worry about. That's when it worked. But
I don't know. I can't even physically sleep in anymore because I'm gonna be awake around, I don't know, whatever, half past 9 or so, and that's it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I come home from shows at like 4 in the morning or something, and I know exactly how it's gonna end up. I'm gonna have like 2 hours of shitty sleep, and then I'm gonna be awake and dead tired and just trying to not lose the day completely and just being zombieing around in the house for a day.
Well, playing shows is quite draining in and of itself, rather than even if it's not a late finish. Like, and especially if, like yourself, if you've been traveling or anything like that, like tours must be really, really draining.
Let's not even start that yet, because
maybe that's for another.
Yeah, that we can definitely get into that in a different episode. But that's a whole different topic.
Well, it feels like a good point to wrap this one up then.
Yeah. But I've had a ton of fun doing this. Really, I've enjoyed it a lot, and we're definitely gonna keep doing this. And there is so much to unwrap. I think so much to discuss. So many spicy topics that we can explore. And by spicy, I definitely don't mean spicy. I mean like exciting.
Well, I know we have a handful of ideas in mind, but I feel like we could also be open to suggestions from listeners of anything they might have in mind, that we can maybe explore a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a call out to the people listening here. First of all, thank you for listening. Thanks for the interest. We both appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions about what do you want to hear us talk about, or what would be, an exciting topic to explore, let us know in the comments as usual. And please subscribe to our channels. All the usual bollocks of the internet,
Bollocks of the internet. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone listening. We'll see you again in the next one.